What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I got a really special guest for you today. It's been a really long time, but we got the one and only Joe Shasky, aka Butcher Boy from 95.7 The Game. He's given me a little time before that national championship game starts that we both forgot about. So it wasn't just Joe, it was myself. So we've kind of pushed up the stream a little and try to get it under the 8 o'clock hour or 5 o'clock hour, wherever you guys are in the country. But real quick, we're gonna get to some Niner topics. Maybe we'll touch on the national championship game real quick. But how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, just I mean, honestly, it was a hard, difficult 49ers season, and the way it ended, just I mean, it stinks. But the only way I can get any kind of solace is if Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs do not win the Super Bowl, because I feel like we're turning into their version of the Cincinnati Bengals to his Joe Montana and Bill Walsh, where all of their Super Bowl wins, like the montage when they all go into the Hall of Fame, is going to be against us. And I need anyone but the Chiefs to win it all.
Yeah, it's I've been watching the playoffs. It's been tough to watch, especially with the way the NFC's kind of all the top teams kind of fizzled out um
Yeah,
rather quickly. And all these quarterbacks that everybody wants to, put in this elite category. They like to put him above Brock. Um, you know, for whatever reason, people have their reasons why. Um, Not that I love to see people fail or anything like that, but to have all these self-appointed elite guys that haven't really accomplished anything in the NFL kind of go down, in some of them in a pretty dramatic fashion, like a Sam Darnold. I think it might have been on your guys' airwaves where you had Baldinger say
oh yeah,
he'd trade him straight up at that
our show.
moment, and I was just like, "Wow, are we really that much of prisoners of the moment?" So when that went down, I had a lot to say on X, and a lot of people responded accordingly. There's people out there that make a living on content who really are not fans of Kyle. They're not fans of Brock. It seems like they have more fun talking about their other teams' franchises and their quarterbacks, but they cover the Niners, which it's like this
Yeah.
weird energy. So yeah, there's that. But yeah, it was a tough season to watch, man. It was like I felt really early on, and I didn't want to give Mente Teo's soundbite that he did before the season any credit, but he made a statement about having this weird energy coming from the 49ers. And I'm like, what does this do now? Right. He was right, and he was right
Yeah.
in a dramatic fashion. So, yeah, this was a tough season to get through. I was clocked out probably by the early December, but just found a way to get through it, knowing we're not going to have football for 8 months. So, yeah, there's that.
I know it was a tough one. I dismissed Manti Te'o too. I mean, you're not the only one, because it was like, what the hell is this guy now? I mean, mediocre NFL career, but great college player at Notre Dame. But I'm thinking, what does he know about winning? Like, give me a break, you know? But he ended up being right. It's crazy, right? I think you and I have some pretty good perspective when it comes to the Niners and just sports in general. I feel like people think that you're going to win the Super Bowl every year, and if you don't, you're a failure. There's so much room for middle ground. I don't understand why everyone has to be the greatest who's ever played or the worst who's ever played, and there's no middle ground. And I think this is where the Brock discourse comes in, where it's like, I think Brock's a really, really good player. I do. I think he's a really good player. Is he as good as Joe Burrow or Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes? Probably not. Probably not. But you could do a lot worse than Brock Purdy. Now, like, how much do you pay him? What's he worth? I don't know. Like, it seems like all these guys are getting grossly overpaid, but I think he's a really good player, and I don't want to lose him. Um, it's the problem is, if you say any criticism of Brock, people are like, "You're a hater. You think he sucks." Like, no, I think he's really good. He had a down year this year, and a guy like Sam Darnold had a career year. That's what it is, a career year. Let's see what he looks like next year. Sam Darnold. And I don't even know where he's going to play football next year. He had two pretty poor games to end the year. Brock's had some bad games. Didn't have any playoff games that look like those. So I really like him. Jared Goff's a great example. I thought Jared Goff had a great year, a freaking great year. Had a horrible game. It's a one-game sample. Horrible game. And now everyone's taking a dump on Jared Goff. It's like, look, is he the greatest quarterback in the world? No, but he's pretty freaking good, and he had a really good season. It just feels like there's no nuance in any of these sports conversations anymore, and it really like bugs me. Kyle's a really good coach, if not great coach. Okay, Andy Reid's better than him, and like being the second or third or fourth or fifth best coach isn't something to be special. Like what are we talking about? Like
Yeah.
they've won 8 playoff games with Kyle Shanahan. 8. You know how many teams would die to be Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers? It's just, and I get guilty of this. Like, we're never going to win a Super Bowl, this, that, and the other. But that doesn't mean I want the guy gone. And I just feel like nuance is gone in today's, especially radio, the internet, the content creators, people on television. Everyone's trying to say more outlandish shit than someone else. And like, to me, it's like, that's not real life.
Yeah, the one thing that really gets me about people that make content that have massive followings is what happens is you get a lot of what's the word I'm looking for in the Niners community? There's a lot of dissension, there's a lot of division because people have these hot or cold takes. Everything is prisoner of the moment instead
Yes.
of looking at the body of work. I made a tweet last night, which doesn't mean I hate Lamar Jackson, but I said Lamar Jackson, to me, at least right now, is the Dan Marino of this era. Incredible regular season stats, like earth-shattering regular
Yeah.
seasons, and he's a pumpkin in the playoffs. He can't get it done on there, and so far.
Yeah.
It's funny
So far,
how
exactly.
it's funny how these arguments, depending on who you're talking to, different people have a lot more leeway. Certain other people have no leeway. Brock has done well in the postseason. His 2 out of 3 years he's been the starter, yet gets zero leeway for having a down season. But yet you do the same thing with another quarterback, and people want to make tons of excuses. So it's very uneven. For me, for him being what he was, which was the last pick in the draft, to me, and I know this sounds really like, oh, what are you okay with us losing Super Bowls? No, what he's given us is already more than what
I
we
totally
could
agree.
have ever expected
Totally agree.
based on when he was drafted. So everything else is bonus. That's to me, that's how I feel. So do I
No,
think
I
he's
agree.
an elite quarterback? No. Do I think he's a bottom dwelling? Some people have him in the 20s. Like, what are you talking about? I get him in that 8 to 12 range. That's kind of where I
That's
put him.
me. Yep.
Yep. I think he's above Jordan Love. I think he is above Dak Prescott. I forgot there was some people had this list. I don't know what the list was, but it had him so far behind everybody else. They were already saying Jalen Daniels was an elite quarterback. Dude looks really good, but pump the brakes. It's one season. Like, people live in the moment. For some reason, Joe Burrow, he's accomplished nothing, yet people rank him at the top. He's only done really well. He's done well in the regular season. He has a decent postseason record, I think, with Burrow. I think he has a
Yes.
winning postseason
It's
record,
because
but
he beat Mahomes one time. Like,
yeah,
that's really what it boils down to. It's funny you talk about like Brock Purdy. Like last year, he had an unbelievable season. It was
yep,
almost perfect. And even me, like I'm a diehard Niner fan. I'm like, damn, can he do that again? Like that was almost perfect. And he
yeah.
had a down year this year, right? Like by his metrics, a down year. It still would have been one of the better quarterback seasons the Niners have had in the last 15 years, which is wild. And that's how high the bar is. And then I saw guys like CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud threw for 17 touchdowns in the regular season last year. He had a great little playoff run. They won one game. They won one game last year, and people were anointing him. And I like him. I think he's really good. But I'm like, hey, can he do it again? And that's not being a hater. It's like he's the second pick overall. I like him. He's really young, but like, I don't know. Baker had a great rookie year and fell off the map. And then now all of a sudden he's good again. Like these things take ebbs and flows. And I just feel like context doesn't matter. I think Brock was playing hurt this year, and it's admirable that he played because
So
that
did I.
team needed people to suit up. But I really believe that something happened in the shoulder, the elbow. I don't know what, and he'll never come out and use it as as an excuse, but I will for him. You could tell he wasn't. I don't think he looked right for a long time, and I think the offensive line did him no favors. There were
No.
injuries galore. On top of all of that, yeah, he had kind of a poor year, but I still like the guy. I still like him a lot.
Look how worried everybody was at the end of that game, the last game he played in, when
Oh,
everybody thought he
me
blew his
too.
elbow out again.
Yeah,
I was so scared.
me too.
The conversation changed on X. All the people that were talking at S all of a sudden are like, "Oh God, we might have lost Brock." It's like, wait a minute. I thought he sucked. I thought he wasn't any good. Why does it matter that he's out could be out? It's weird, man. People are weird.
I know.
I always find it strange. Darnold and other quarterbacks, you could say, well, sometimes there's just a maturation process. It takes them a long time, and then eventually they hit. But then on the other side of it, you have Brock Purdy on the other side of the argument saying, yeah, I just don't think he has it. It's only been
Yeah.
he's been a starter maybe 2.5 years, and we're already
Yes.
coming to these conclusions that maybe he's just not the guy, and we need to maybe we should use that top 11 pick to go get a quarterback or this, that, or the other. And it's just like, oh my God, there was so many things wrong with this team this year. Brock Purdy was definitely on the list, but I would list injuries and
Yep.
tragedy above everything else. Brock's maybe like 8 to 10 on the list. And like you said, I thought he played hurt as well. And I thought he was trying to play hero ball at a lot of point this year
I agree.
with uneven roster, with an uneven lineup, where every week you didn't know if Debo was down this year. I was really down on him, but it looks like he's coming back next year. We didn't have
I like
Trent Williams.
Debo, but he wasn't good.
No, he was really bad this year.
He was really bad. Like, of all the guys on the team, Aaron, like, okay, Jawan Jennings, no one saw him as the number one wide receiver on this team heading into the year, right? George Kittle was the only guy that you think highly of who delivered on his promise this year, right? On what you thought he would do. CMC, did barely play. Debo was not good. I thought he finished strong, but he was not good. Pearsall showed promise, but like, it's a lost year,
Mhm.
and I'm really encouraged with what I saw at the end. Poor
Same.
Ayuk. Poor Ayuk, like the leg, everything, the contract. They botched the whole thing. They waited too long. If they were going to trade him, they should have traded him. They botched the whole thing. Trent Williams didn't play well. Dominic Tooney was a positive. What else on offense was a positive? Like, there's just
Okay.
not a lot. And so, yeah, Brock's on the list of problems, but like way down.
Absolutely. Let's talk real quick about this coaching, defensive coordinator, special teams. We still haven't we haven't figured that out. I told you like last week, like, oh yeah, when we get the stream, we'll probably have a DC and a special teams coordinator. Nope, neither have happened. I'm getting a little scared. I'm not gonna lie, because it's
Me too.
the list of candidates is down to really like Eberflus and Sala and Staley, who's already on the roster, and I I don't know,
The
man.
Staley thing makes no sense. I don't get it.
It feels like that's just because they missed out kind of thing, like that kind of move. Like, oh, we didn't get the guy we got. Well, we have Staley on our roster or in our coaching staff, so we might as well promote him. I mean, do you think it's dangerous the way they played this game with Sala, where they've essentially
Well,
said we're going to pay you head coach money to be our DC, but go interview?
let me ask you this like, I like Robert Saleh, and I think most Niner fans I talk to can only name a couple of DCs around the league. So it's whenever we talk about these, like, it's tough. Like, I don't know. Like, there's this guy for the Raiders who played, I guess, was a New England like linebacker coach or whatever. He was the DC with the Raiders. But if I just say that Raiders DC, most people are like, I don't want anything to do with the Raiders defensive coordinator. Be good, maybe. When they picked up Robert Saleh,
Yep.
I didn't know anything about him. D'Amico Ryans, I just remember him from when he played. I did want to see them do
Me
something
too.
different, though. Like, just hire
Yeah.
someone who's not with the organization and just bring in some new ideas, because it did feel stale. Like, Bosa's had 2 down years.
Yes.
If we're talking CMC's the most important on offense, I mean, it's Warner and it's Bosa on defense. And I know Warner was hurt, so throw him to the side. Bosa hasn't looked right. And I still like Bosa. I know everybody's triggered by him. Yeah, he got a little overpaid. I still think he's a good player, a great player, in fact. But they need to get him right. And if a scheme change or someone new can get the best out of him, I'm here for it. Like, I'm open-minded, and I'm a little worried that Salah's a little close-minded. You know, like in terms of like running something from 5 years ago. I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
really
and
weary on Salah.
the whole wide nine thing is kind of ran its course for me too.
Me
Uh,
too.
Chris Kasarik and that whole thing, yeah, it's great, but what has he done the last 2 years with all these different guys that we've rolled in as
Nothing.
pass rushers? A whole lot of zero. It's been the Bosa show and not much else. And if Bosa's down, then it's really bad. You had two huge misses. Robert Beal, Drake Jackson, both huge misses in the draft
Hmm.
for all the good that the Niners have done, and I want to give shout out to Adam Peters for what he's done with the Commanders. I'm so happy for him. My brother's like, because he's a Dolphins fan, he's like, man, I wish someone like that could have came to my team and been the talent evaluator. He's like, yeah, you guys got all these people. I told him, I said, we're kind of like the reverse of what we did in the 80s and 90s. We're like, we're not winning the Super Bowls, but we're still kind of pollinating the league with different things and different
Absolutely.
people. But yeah, what was I talking
I
about?
love that term. Well, you were just talking about how they whiffed on the D lineman.
Yeah, and then there's Brock, and there's not much else. I would love to me. Everyone's like, worried about the Niners. They play, they do the, drop eight, rush four, Chris Kasarik run. That's what they do. That's their defense. Cover three. They just play zone defense and they let everything happen in front of them. I feel like one of the things that I hate about the Niners defense is they depend so much on their stars to make plays all the time instead of having a really good scheme that is really like sometimes you don't always have to have like elite level players at every single level because there's teams in the playoffs that are doing it with players that we haven't really heard of and their defenses look really really good. So to me sometimes like the whole Salah thing, yeah, that's great, but can Salah work with the dinged up linebacking core if Greenlaw doesn't come back? Can Salah be good if he's only got Bosa and not much else on the defensive line? I mean, the young secondary is promising. I
I
mean,
really like the
if we
secondary.
can get a nickel back in this draft,
Yeah.
the Niners have one of the if the Niners can get themselves a nickel back, but that's not really the thing. Is if the Niners can get themselves a free safety, if they make
Yes.
one
Ball
move in
hawker.
free agency this year, if there is a mid-level free agent who's a safety, did you think could be a starter? We need a center fielder.
Yeah, I
We
agree.
have a strong safety in Mustafa, who I think is gonna be really really good. I think Renardo Green is awesome.
Excellent.
And
Yeah,
I
I
think
agree.
Emo is underrated and disrespected. Uh, so there's that. But yeah, like, why does it always have to be that we have to have elite? You know what I mean? Like, that's the only thing I
Yeah.
worry about Salah is like, he's coming back in based on what he did in 2019. Can he do it now with an older roster with a lot of the same players and maybe a little less? I'm worried.
Well, I think their number one need just for a team. Like everyone's going to say offensive line, and they're not wrong. Like I would invest heavily in the offensive line. I think you can find a guard, maybe not a tackle, but I think you can find a guard in free agency. I was looking at all the different free agents. Kansas City has a guy who's going to get broken off, a tremendous amount of money. But there's other guys like, for example, Zach Martin from the Dallas Cowboys. Now look, he's old. He's like Trent Williams. He's older. But like if you had Cooney and Zach Martin as your guards,
Mhm.
okay. And then now I can draft a center in the mid to late rounds and plug and play him. Colton McKivitz is not the best, but I think they can get away with it for now. I still want to draft a tackle at some point. But to me, the number one need for the entire team, you have to find a bookend rusher for Nick Bosa. And if you have to trade up to go get that individual, and if it includes Debo, then so be it. Like to me, you have to move up and get yourself the second or third best passer. I want Abdul Carter. I don't think that that's going to be available. He's the kid from Penn State. I think he'd be just chef's kiss. Like he's a Micah Parsons level player. I would love to get that. I'd be open to trading for a Miles Garrett or a Max Crosby, who's a more refined player, a
I was
little
going to ask
older.
about
Like
that.
I,
You
I
saw
would love to
Demo's
do
tweet,
that.
right?
Oh yeah. Wouldn't you love to do that?
I streamed on TikTok this year, and I swear to God, people are like, Crosby went to the Niners, and I was like, no, it's just me. It's me.
Yeah.
I'm not Crosby, but no, I
You do
used to
look like him.
I tell people I wish that would be amazing. I have no tats though. Like I am as pale
Yeah.
and white as can be. Uh, he's he's about as muscular as I am because he don't got no muscles. He's just this
No.
skinny guy with a bunch of tattoos. No, but like Max
Great player though.
Crosby. Oh my God, you imagine that?
That would be
Again
great.
though, it's like fantasy world stuff. That's like
But I
turning off
thought
the salad.
CMC was a fantasy, right?
Right,
Like
right.
this is a team that swung big. So I just to me, I think a lot of your problems on defense can be solved. You just make the freaking pass rush better. The one thing I don't want them to do, and Aaron, I'd love your opinion on this. Like if they take a D tackle with their first pick, my head will explode. Stop taking two down linemen who can't rush the passer on third down. Like
Yep.
the Javon Kinlaw pick, the Solomon Thomas pick. I'm done. It's bad value. Like you could take that later in the draft. You cannot take that 11th overall. Like it was just it's pass rusher. It's offensive lineman. I'm even, and this sounds crazy. I'm even open to running back. Like I really am. Given how important running back is, if I took Saquon off Philadelphia, don't you look at Philly completely different?
I don't think people want to talk about Brock being carried by an elite roster. Can we
Say
say
it.
the same thing about their quarterback, Jalen
Thank
Hurts?
you.
What's Jalen Hurts without the running back you just said,
Saquon.
Saquon? What is he? What is
Mediocre.
right. So he's definitely been carried by that, but that's okay. Like whatever, I don't care.
Exactly.
I'm at this point now, and I want to know if you feel the same way. Like when people say like, "Oh, Brock needs this in order to be around him and to compete for Super Bowl," you know what? So what? If that's what it takes to go
Come
win a
on.
Super Bowl, if you're not Joe Montana, like listen, we've already had elite quarterbacks come through this franchise. We may never see one again. We've had two
I
in our
know.
history, and they came right back to back. And people think they grow on trees. They're like, oh, the Niners need to get themselves a Josh Allen or this and the yeah, go suck for like 10 years. Then maybe you find one at the top of the draft, and maybe you don't destroy his career with having bad football players around him and stuff. That whole thing with Josh Allen happened very organically over time. He was an interception machine for a while in
Mm.
his career before he refined his game and became a better player. But this whole thing, like, I know I'm coming off of the argument of the Eagles, but like the whole argument, like, oh, he needs a bunch of people around, whatever. Like, I don't care. If it
Yeah, I'm
results
with
in a
you.
Super Bowl and he's just part of the ride, I could give a rat's ass. I don't.
Name
It
me
doesn't bother
n-
me.
name me a quarterback who went to multiple NFC Championship games or AFC Championship games who didn't have All Pro talent. Like that's it's the
Montana did.
yeah, it's the most
So did
absurd thing
Steve
that I've ever
Young.
heard. Yeah,
Peyton
all
Manning
of
had an
them.
elite roster.
Uh, Aikman, Brady, go right down
Yes,
the list. Drew Brees, like all the greats. The funny thing is, like Drew Brees won the one Super Bowl, and if you look at, he had a lot of playoff losses, and he had elite talent. Michael Thomas, Jimmy Graham, Alvin Kamara. He had some great teams. Marcus Colston was really good for a long time. Joe Horn early on, like that guy fumbled in the playoffs a lot. They fell on their face a lot. He's one of the all-time greats. It's hard to win. Like that's the thing that I'm watching the Golden State Warriors kind of come to the end here. Like, and everyone's losing their mind. And I'm like, do you realize? I'm telling this like Warrior fans. I'm like, do you realize you went to 6 NBA finals and you won 4 championships?
of
Do
course.
you know how rare it is to even win one? Like, to even win one. Aaron Rodgers is one of the greatest players to ever play football. One Super Bowl. One. And that was like 15 years ago. Drew Brees, one Super Bowl. Like, I don't think people understand. Yes, Brady and Mahomes are freaking unicorns. They're different. Like, it used to be difficult. Steve Young, he technically has 3 Super Bowls because he was the backup, but one Super Bowl. And he's one of my favorite athletes of all time because of how he kept, going through all the crucible, if you will.
Yeah.
This is sports. It's hard. The other team drives big cars, lives in big homes, and gets paid a lot too. Like it's hard. I just think that people think it's like a video game. Oh, simulate to win.
Yeah. Turn off the salary cap. Turn off
Exactly.
injuries. That's a whole other thing. You can't control injuries. The
No.
Niners and why last year was so disappointing that they didn't win is the last year was their most advantageous. Is advantageous the word?
Yeah.
Um, Crack at it. They were healthy. They were the better team in that Super Bowl last year with Kansas City. Head and shoulders, the Niners were more talented, and it just didn't work out. And so people seeing teams lose in the divisional round and not make it back, like the Ravens or who
Detroit.
lost? Detroit. And somebody was doing the broadcast, or somebody who tweeted, maybe tweeted not on the broadcast. They said like it just shows what the Niners have done, how difficult it's been for them, what they've done, and how people make it like it's just this easy thing to return to the conference championship game and give your shot to win a Super Bowl. Like the Niners may not return to the conference championship or even get to a Super Bowl next year. My whole thing is as long as the Niners, I felt like this year I wanted it to go about as bad as it possibly could because I hate when years end and there's like some hope at the end of the season and then maybe people aren't as steadfast on change.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want it to
Yeah.
go as bad as it possibly could. Like I wasn't sure Sorensen was going to get fired as the DC. And then when it actually happened, I was like, okay. But then they're still going to keep him possibly in the coaching staff, which is weird.
Makes no
Like
sense.
in the old days, when you got fired, you were fired. Now it's
Yeah.
like you don't want to hurt people's feelings. And then of course the special teams is just as, oh my God, man, I didn't realize how important special teams was to a team until I watched this season, and just how making a
Horrific.
field goal was like this insurmountable thing that every game I'm like, anytime I seen him line up, I'm like, he's not making this. Like it's so bad. It should never be that bad. And now I'm so jaded by it that anytime I see a kicker on another team, I'm like, yeah, he's not making this. Like I have no confidence anymore. He's completely ruined it for me. But
Aaron, if I were to tell you, like at the beginning of the year, hey, Brandon Ayuk and CMC would have 0 touchdowns, and Debo would have whatever. Would he have 3? I think he had 3 touchdowns.
Combined had over 40 last year.
Okay.
They ended up having only 2.
Okay. How much
combined.
money would have I've had to have paid you to believe that the over under was 2? Like there was no amount of money that you could have paid me where I would have believed that those 3 would give you that little production. It's impossible. And no, look, Brock's part of that because of the function. Those guys played like a handful of games, 2 of them. And Debo got pneumonia. I want to be fair to Debo. He got pneumonia during the regular season, and my dad ended up passing away. It was other things, but pneumonia is part of it. It's a serious thing. That being said, he kind of stunk before and after the pneumonia, even though he came in the best shape of his life. Trent and Charvarius Ward, what happened off the field? How can anyone have anything critical to say to either of those human beings given what happened as a human?
People were on the app
because they're
sick.
There was
people that still made comments like, "Well, before it even happened, like don't even go there."
I know.
I lost my dad over 10 years ago, and it took me a long time. I was out of work for a long time, and when I went back, it was I deal with depression and stuff. I have to take medicine.
You're not alone.
And so my mental health was in a bad place. And I'm just a normal guy working a blue collar job. I'm not a millionaire. And then, so I look at that and then I'm like, these guys are professional athletes who have to put their body on the line in a most physical sport where you can end up crippled at any time, in any play. If your mind's not right and you're not completely focused on that, you shouldn't be on the field. I had no issues with Trent Williams missing time towards the end of the season. And I definitely didn't have any issues with the situation with Charvarius Ward.
No.
I could care less. He was going to be a goner this year anyways with Renardo Green playing as well as he has because it's a salary cap thing. They got to make moves in order to kind of, build the roster back up or whatever. But at no point did I say, well, like, God, he's just screwing us over, and then his dad, his baby, passed away. It just like at that point, I didn't even care. Like, I just wanted this season to end. It was such a tragedy of just certain events and even actual tragedy with people losing children and stuff and Ricky Pearsall getting shot. This was just a season to I wanted it to end. And when it finally was over, I'm like, I think this is the first time where I'm actually like, I felt like the players. I just can't wait to get to the off season, relax.
Yeah, we were exhausted.
We're not worried about football for 8 months.
Yeah.
Look forward to free agency in the draft, which is something, when you're a good team, you don't really look forward to free agency in the draft because good teams draft late. So it's going to be kind of cool to have the 11th pick unless they move it, so, and free agency, maybe they make a couple moves here and there, but yeah.
Aaron, I'm going to tell you a quick story. So I've been going to Niner games my whole life and I never grew up trying to be a part of the media, right? That's something that kind of happened because of podcasts and stuff later on in life. And so I work with Bonte Hill.
It's a great story, by the way, too, people, if you ever want to hear it.
I appreciate that. But I'm learning from some of my colleagues on the fly. And I don't consider myself a journalist or even in the media. I'm just talking sports. That's the way I view it, even though I know that there are certain rules that I have to abide by.
Yeah.
I would crush certain players because of the play, which I think is fair game, like their play and whatnot. But the humanity aspect I learned from Bonte. We went to practices, and this was like some of my first times going to practice about 5, 6 years ago. And D Ford was hurt at the time. And I remember, like, not that I was crushing the person, but I was like, dude, why can't this guy get on the field? What's going on? What's going on? The back, the knee, the this, the that. And then I went out to these practices and we're walking around, and some of the guys recognized us and we're kind of like BSing, and they're super cool or whatever. And there I see D Ford working alone by himself on this sled, and he's like in a non-contact jersey. And like we walked up, like, "What's up, D Ford? Like, what's up?" He's like, "Hey man, I'm just trying to get my body right. Like it's just it sucks. I can't be out there. Like I'm really working hard." And I watched this guy, and it's again one practice. I went to a bunch that year, but it was one practice, and I saw it every time I was there. And he's working by himself. These guys most of them love the game more than any of us could love anything. And his body wouldn't allow him to play. Now, me, I'm like, get on the field. What's going on? But I learned the humanity aspect of it, where it's like, now these guys are really busting their ass to try to get on that field. Most of them. Yeah, there's always an outlier, you know what I mean? But most of these guys care more about this and playing this sport. And the money, yeah, they want money and all that stuff. But like, this guy is not mentally right because he's so frustrated. His body won't let him play. Right. And so now take it a step further, and like something happens to your family. You know what I mean? Like what happened to Trent and Travis. It's freaking awful. And so the humanity aspect of how we talk about these guys online and at games, because I see it with people at games, it disgusts me. It's not everybody, it's a small amount of people, but it gives us all a bad rap. You know what I mean? Like all of us fans who are good fans who understand like the big picture. I was holding my son earlier. Could you imagine talking the way we talk about some of these athletes? You know what I mean? And they're holding their kid and they're like reading Instagram and some of these comments. It's just wild. Like it's wild to me. And I get frustrated too. Like I wanted Ronnie Bell cut. I didn't think Ronnie Bell was good. But I'm also not disrespecting Ronnie Bell, the human. Like I don't know. I know I went on a little tangent there, but it really frustrates me because I think the 99% of us are good fans and good content creators and talkers in sports and all that stuff. All it takes is a handful of people talking crazy, and it makes us all look horrible. And then you wonder why the athletes have a chip on their shoulder. It's like, look at how we're talking about them. Like they're not human.
Yeah, there's people. Look at how the Niners respond to certain people who ask them questions.
Exactly.
Because they know it's not in good faith.
Exactly.
You act like a snake. You act like a responsible person in front of these players asking questions like you care. And then you go on another platform and you bury everybody and you talk so matter of fact about things that you know nothing about, people's jobs that could be on the line. And it's all rumor and innuendo. And it's like, I don't have that following. I don't make money off of this. I'm just a fan, a 49ers fan. I've been a Niners fan. I'm 45. I've been a Niners fan since I was 10. That's all I am, dude. Like, I'm nobody. I just come on here. I'm happy when they win. I'm pissed off when they lose.
And that's
really what it is.
Yeah.
And I've come to the realization that I'm having a lot more fun doing this. Once YouTube demonetized me, it was just like, okay, I can't really do this for money, but that's all right. I'm still going to do it. It's been 5 years. I'm still doing it. And like, yeah, the human aspect, my dad always used to tell me, Aaron, listen, you can't get upset about these guys when they lose games and everything. He's like, Aaron, they still get paid anyways, man. Like they still have to live their life regardless. He's like, you can't care more than they do. And once the game ends, like that's their job. That's what they get paid to do. And so like, there's that part of it where I realize they're humans. And like, when I hear about people getting mad at people for getting the bag, I'm always like, why? If that was you and you had a chance to make generational wealth for your family for ages, are you kidding me? Why are you hating? I don't know, man. That's just me.
No, I'm with you on that, but I also believe, and this is me, like if you're the highest paid guy on the job site, because I've worked real jobs, for the longest time, and it's like if you're the highest paid guy on the job site and you kind of like do certain things to management, you better bring it. Like you better bring it, or the rest of your crew is going to look at you side-eyed. And so I look at someone like Nick Bosa. I love Nick Bosa. From day one, I was like, bro, I said this at training camp. I go, I swear to God, this guy looks like he's a 10-year vet. I think he literally looks like he's a Hall of Famer day one. Like against Joe Staley, I was like watching him go at it. I'm like, I can't believe what I'm watching. and I love watching him play. I don't care about his politics. I'm not looking for
I
Nick
don't either.
Bosa to shape what I'm thinking. You know what I mean?
Nope.
I do me. I don't care about what Popovich says. I don't care about Steph Curry, LeBron. I don't look to athletes for politics. Okay, I
Nope.
look to my family. You know what I mean? And we have conversations, and I live, and I listen, and we question things. Anyway, point being is that I'm frustrated because he's not playing as good. And he did kind of like hold out. And he wanted to get all that money. And if you get all that money, you better show up. You can't throw the DC under the bus. You know, I want you to be a leader. If you see Devontae Campbell crying in the corner, like, step up, dude. Say something. You are the highest paid player on the team. And so that's where, like, if you take the money, I think that more responsibility is required of you. When I look at
That I
Fred
agree with.
Warner, when I see Fred Warner, I see leader. When I see George Kittle this last year, because I
Leader.
thought George was kind of fake before, not anymore. I'm like, you know what? George is a leader. George is mature. George is like the heartbeat of this team.
I
And
was
I
the
want him
same
to
way
be a
with
Niner
George for a
forever.
while too. I was like, I don't know, man. This guy, he's got a little too much WWE in him. I don't think his
I was with you.
personality is real. Dude, he busted his ass
I
this year
love him.
playing every game, and he's just dude. He's got a shoulder issue that he's gonna deal with when he retires. Like he wears that same nasty,
Yep.
dingy looking strap around his
Yeah.
shoulder that I see every game every year. And then my brother's like, "Why doesn't he get anything done?" I'm like, "He'll get it done after his career's over, man.
It's
He's
true.
gonna give everything." Same thing with
He's a
Fred.
gladiator.
Yeah, Bosa to me, I did get a little bit of a vibe this year. Like, I didn't like how accepting they were to the fact that they were
Yes.
going home and having an off season that's going to be a little bit longer. And yeah, I'll get my body right. And I haven't had a chance since I got drafted. I'm like, why is everybody so comfortable with this, man? Like,
It
we should be
totally.
fighting for a championship again this year. Like, I get the like at the same time, I'm like understanding and I feel sympathy for everything that's happened. But when I saw kind of just how like ho hum everybody was, that it was the end of the season, we were going home, and I was just like, man, that pisses me off. Like if that was the teams in the 80s and 90s, somebody would have gotten fired. It wouldn't have
Well,
been anybody we knew, but it was somebody, trainer, some middle of the roster guy. They would have made an example. I just felt like even with the coaching staff a little bit, and even the GM to some point, like just a little too accepting of how this season kind of played out. I didn't
it's
sense
funny you
the
say
anger.
that. No, it's funny you say that. So like we get a chance to interview Jerry Rice, and that's something that's not lost. And like we're very lucky. So he comes on like every 3 weeks, like let's say.
Oh,
And
awesome.
it's amazing. And Jerry has gotten really like a lot better on radio and stuff and on the Zooms. And he's like, man, I punched somebody on the sideline. So I know when like he was talking about how frustrated he would get, like a fight would break out because he thought they laid down against the Chiefs in the second half and he was pissed off on their behalf. Now, Jerry seems very mild mannered. Jerry will kill you like for a yard. Like
He was a
literally
killer.
him. A hundred
He
percent. Him,
cared.
Frank Gore, Ronnie Lott, like pick Bryant Young, Patrick Willis, pick all your favorite Niners. And I do believe George Kittle is built of that same cloth. I think Fred Warner is built from that same cloth. And I do believe, even though he's very like chill, I do believe Nick Bosa deep down inside is similar to that. But he made a point where he was like, show some fight. Well, Debo did show some fight, and people were all up in arms about it. And I was like, you know what, dude, in the heat of the moment, I kind of get it. Like Debo's frustrated. He's having a bad year. The kicker's missing kicks. It wasn't the right thing. It was horrible from a teammate to judo chop somebody else. But at least somebody had some fight in them, for crying out loud. And, you know, there's times where Debo can come off like a front runner, but I just think that he's built a different kind of way. He's just
The
different.
I told my brother this because I have a temper. I'm a hothead, right? I'm half Irish, half Sicilian. I'm crazy. So is my brother. But so when I saw that stuff happening, I said I would have punched someone in the head too.
Exactly.
Especially if you're ho humming it and your center, your long snapper has to come to your defense because you don't have enough sack to stand up for yourself.
It was
That's
unreal.
just like, what are you doing on an NFL sideline? Like, why are you on this team? Like, yeah, I'm the same way, bro. Like, I'm super hyper competitive, even though I have no athletic ability in my life to speak of. Like, dude, like people smiling on the sidelines and being way too happy in losses and just chalking it up to a bad
Well,
season and stuff. Yeah, too much of that.
you know what Jerry said, which I found kind of interesting, and maybe it's the old head, and things have changed, and but he was like, you know, when I was playing, we didn't let the families on the field. And he said that like before the game, he's like, there was like a level of professionalism. You were getting ready to crush the other team. Now,
Yes.
again, I get it. It's 2025. Things have changed. But like, I do kind of believe him. And he said, look, the family can go out there, but let's say 20 minutes before the game starts, they got to go. Like they got to go. You got to lock in. And Jerry was talking about how the too many guys not getting ready for the games. And he wasn't like blaming the families. It's not their fault. And guys want to be close to their families. He understands that. It's like, I'm going to work right now. And I just, it's interesting to hear. And like, come on, who's going to argue with Jerry Rice? This ain't me saying, it's
How
Jerry
can
freaking
you?
Rice.
He's
You
got
know?
every conceivable record ever in a wide receiver, and he's got 3
Exactly.
chips. He's got
Exactly.
3 chips and a Super Bowl MVP to boot. So, like, how could you hate on Jerry Rice? He said that during he was I think he did say something about during the playoffs last year. He felt a little bit like just because both of those games are really close, and
Yeah.
he had an issue with like too much having fun on the field before the game, like people not being mentally locked in. It's just a different era, man, with
I
social
know.
media and people talking to their phones while they're doing stuff pregame. And oh, dude, I'm a miserable person when I have a job to do. I'm so ultra focused and I come off very kind of prickish. But
Yeah.
that's like I would be that kind of athlete too. And a lot of people say, well, it's because you're an old head. It's a generational thing, man. It's just a different era, man. Like these guys in this era,
Yeah.
everybody.
But you say that, but then when I watch Dre Greenlaw, because I go to a lot of the practices, like,
He's
and this is
totally different,
before he
right?
was, oh my God, Dre Greenlaw looks like he's straight out of 1985 Chicago Bears defense.
Yes,
He is smashing his helmet. He came over to me, and I'm not a very tall guy. I'm 5'9", 5'10". He comes over. He's the same height as me. His arms are humongous. And I'm like, this human being to get ready for this game, the only way he can prepare is to mentally take himself to the darkest and darkest of places. Malik Mustafa reminds me of that. I think he's very similar. Malik Mustafa, see, to me, he's like a Deshaun Golson. Like, he's old school, separate you from the ball. I am trying to take your head off. I love football players like that.
I love hearing that crackle of the helmet when there's
Oh,
or the
it's the
pads on a
best.
really hard hit and
Yeah.
the ball comes flying out. I will never forget that the one in the divisional game against the Saints back in 2011 when was either Goldston or Whitner separated the ball from Pierre Thomas.
That was Whitner, the hitman.
He knocked his
and then he kissed his bicep.
Oh, I missed that. I missed that on the Niners defense.
Oh, it's the best.
I am definitely. I sent my buddy a video the other day. He's not a big football fan, but he's a big Ronnie Lott fan. I'm like, bro, we missed this. I said the game
he's the
misses
best.
guys like this.
Ronnie,
he's another
he's
guy. When you talk to him, he sounds crazy.
Yes.
Really like, what is he talking about?
But he's the nicest guy.
Yeah, but then you put him on the football field and he puts those
giant
giant
insane person.
on.
Yeah.
It's insane.
He's an insane person. But also, honestly, like, and as much as we love like Kelsey and I don't love Kelsey and Mahomes, but America loves those guys. Those guys are killers too. Like in their minds, like as much as I can't stand them, Steph Curry's a great example. Like everyone's like, oh, he's cute little Steph. That guy wants to rip your heart out. That's the best competitors in every sport. That's what they want to do.
People always say, what's the difference between Jordan and LeBron? And what's the I know you've seen the video. People respect LeBron. People fear Jordan.
Yeah.
Difference.
Jordan was
like he was just different. And I am a Jordan guy. I grew up in the 90s. I was a teenager in the 90s.
Me too.
I was a Bulls fan in the 90s. And me and my nephew are on different wavelengths. My nephew's about to be 30 this year. We have gotten into some drag out, loud arguments about Jordan LeBron. And I'm like, bro, you're never going to convert me.
No.
It's never going to happen. I said, you had a hard enough time converting me to say Montana wasn't the GOAT anymore, because I held on to that a long time.
Me too.
Until Brady just was like, all right, I guess I have to conceive it. But it took a while because I'm a Joe Montana guy and I'm I'm an old school guy. I don't even own any of their jerseys, so I should be ashamed of myself. But I guess we can end it on just the fact that we're going into the off season. If you're looking for the draft and free agency, what do you think the Niners' focus should be from Joe Shasky's point of view going in just to like the draft? Is it rebuilding the trenches and getting this team back to where they were in 2019, 2020, 2018 when they were drafting to try to build this juggernaut? that has
Yeah.
since kind of taken some steps back.
I think the easiest thing to say is like the trenches, right? God, if I told you CMC was healthy, don't you feel a lot better about whatever they do in the trenches?
Yes.
They're a run first team. That's how they're going to win. If they're going to have a great season with Brock, play action is going to be huge. And that'll open up everything for all the wide receivers and all that. And if you're running the ball, your defense is probably on the sidelines. If you're running the ball, you're probably either in a one-score game or you're leading, And so, like, I think look, there are a million things. Like, yes, I want a pass rusher. Yes, I want a better center. Yes, I want a better tackle. I could use another running back. But if I told you CMC gave me a 1,500-yard season with receptions and rushing yards, I think the Niners win 10 games, and it's not even a problem next year. I really do. And I look at Washington as a one-year wonder that turned it around quickly. Tampa Bay has turned it around pretty quickly the last couple of years. Philly was dead in the water at the end of last year. Look how quickly they turned it around. Buffalo has completely revamped their team in 1 year. A lot of teams have done this. The blueprint is out there. Like, we can talk about all the draft picks in the world. If CMC comes back, I think so many things fall into place. And I don't think that's some hot take. It's like the guy was the best player in the NFL last year.
They have enough playmakers on offense to win a Super Bowl. To
And
me, it
totally.
comes down to getting their offensive line healthy to protect Brock. And on
Yeah.
defense, it's getting someone to complement Bosa. Maybe
Yeah.
more than one person. I feel like if you keep Leonard Floyd for another year and Yetur Gross-Matos, they're nice situational guys and they're nice depth, but you need a straight up down in, down out
Yeah.
edge rusher opposite. You're right. Don't draft the defensive tackle.
Oh
The
my
whole
God.
draft to replace the guy, like pick for player, like they did when they got rid of Buckner, was the dumbest thing. And then you look at
So
all like
bad.
the red flags that this guy had coming out of
Oh
college
my
too.
God.
He was a
The
mental head
knee.
case and he
I
had a bad
know.
knee. Like
I know.
I don't know. The Niners sometimes they believe too much in their own like the way that they go
Culture.
about doing things, their
Yeah.
culture. Sometimes a bad apple's a bad apple, and you got to get them out of here. And
Yeah.
sometimes it seems like John and Kyle are a little slow to the draw when it comes to that because they want to believe in people. So, like I said, I didn't think they were going to get rid of their DC or their special teams coach, and both of them happened. So I'll be okay. But come free agency, I hope they make maybe 1 to 2 marginal signings. But me, it's all about the draft and getting cheap
Yeah.
help and using that 11th pick to their advantage. Hey, you want to trade back into the mid-teens and maybe jump back in at the bottom of the first round, maybe like pick 28? I'm totally for that. Like, why not,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah. Detroit jump started their whole thing. They had no, I might not be exact, but like the 6th pick, traded down, got Jahmyr Gibbs, and with that extra pick, got Sam Laporta.
I
I mean,
wanted Sam Laporta so bad.
oh my
Every
God.
time I
Well,
see him, I'm like, you imagine those two?
I know. Look, I know we're gonna end it here because I gotta run, the baby's crying. I think they can be really good in one off season again. This is a good coach. This is a good organization and a good quarterback. It's just a little tinkering, and I think they can be right back. 10 wins. 10 wins gets you in the playoffs, and then once we're in the playoffs, anything can happen.
That's right. And you know what? I've been known to be very negative. I am on the Joe Shasky Eternal Optimist bandwagon going into this off season and then going into next year. But everybody, thanks for joining us for the short time you were on. We're gonna go. It's national championship game time and it's
Yep.
baby time. So we're gonna get out of here. Everybody, take care, stay healthy, and we'll talk to you later.
Aaron, hit me again. It's always fun doing this, man. I really appreciate you. Do good work. I'm always hitting the like button when I see you guys on.
No doubt, brother, man. Take care, everybody.
Have a good one. Yep, you too.